All right, so in this next media block, it's going to get slightly less silly, but it's not really. Um, there's a new ad. You remember the one a couple weeks ago with Sam Elliott? And he's like, "Fucking, why don't you just do it and vote for a woman? Get over it." Like he did that whole thing, right? And we thought it was like a caricature, but no, it was a real commercial. So that's in the time capsule. If you search on Clip Genie for Sam Elliott, man, it's such like that's the guy who was like the alpha male in Roadhouse, the original Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze. Uh, he's just saying words for money now. All right, maybe he feels that way, or his character on Parks and Recreation became a real thing for him. Could be just like a mental thing. All right, so in this one we have Kamala's new man ad gets viciously mocked. In this case, it's going to be mocked by Jimmy Dore and and uh and we got Kurt making fun of it too. It does get a little adult languagey a couple parts, but we're adults. Next, Kamala went on this podcast. She did big press tour this week. Like for someone who didn't do any interviews for the first 4 months, all of a sudden they're like, we just got to get all these interviews in your schedule. And we're putting them all in the same week, so no one will even notice because they all happen at once, and people will only see clips and they'll never see like the things. She went on a podcast first called Call Her Daddy. And it's not like she was being bad. Call her daddy, like call her dad and pick her up, get her out of this party. No. It's like being the girl boss type thing. And the show apparently, well, anyway, Jesse's going to fill in the blanks because you need to hear it just from like a younger UFC fighter type dude. He'll tell you about it. And then we come back for Timcast. Kamala slammed, see, I said it right at the time, giving $385 million to Helene victim? No, Lebanon, because they need it because they're being bombed by Israel again because like the things going on past 40, 50 years. So anyway, all those millions, boom, no need to check with authority. We'll just send this to you, Lebanon. But if you're an American citizen, taxpayer, you live in a generational area for a long time, 750 is the best we can do. It's like one of those Pawn Stars things. Best we can do is $750. Sure, they say they'll send more money, but when? That was enough for about 2-3 days for people to survive. It's been 2-3 weeks at this point. It's been a couple weeks. So we'll see what they say, because she just spoke in North Carolina today. I'm sure she's going to like update that situation, and there'll be more news on that. And then Kamala did, after we get to the call her daddy phase of her week, she went to 60 Minutes. And 60 Minutes, they gave her a legit interview. And the gentleman who's interviewing her insisted on getting answers a few times. And that was all well and good. I think it showed like a reality. It was actually a good thing. And then 60 Minutes deceptively edited the video to make Kamala look better than she performed, which I think is disingenuous to the purpose of 60 Minutes. Now, you'll hear later in this clip from Kamala earlier today that, Trump won't go on 60 Minutes and all these things. It's like, he won't go on there because they lied about the Hunter Biden laptop and basically defamed him. And that's the whole reason we got Sleepy Joe in the first place, right? Because even though I'm not political and I don't vote, like I still see what's going on. And this is not the best we've been able to do for the past 4 years. It was like hitting the brakes on America on purpose. And I think people are getting smacked around by that hard stop. And they're coming to realize like maybe we need a better driver so that we can enjoy the ride again. Because it's been a little bumpy lately. So we'll get into these clips. The 60 Minutes clip from various creators this past week. A lot of people just took like one or two pieces of it. The best comprehensive that would save us time and like help us get more into the show card tonight comes from Crowder, because no, they watched the Howard Stern interview live. There was like, she did a lot of interviews this week. So I'm not going to be able to show you clips from all of them. I'm just going to take like a pastiche little mosaic of some of these to paint it out in this week's time capsule of history here in America in 2024. So let's go to the block, and then we will be right back.
Hey, come see us on tour. We'll be in Tempe, Arizona, Los Angeles, Columbus, Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, Cincinnati, Lexington, Burbank, California, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets. Don't go anywhere else. Hey, so there's a new ad out for Kamala Harris, and it's as cringe can be. Here we go.
I'm a man.
I'm a man.
No.
But you're a man. Thank you. Because honestly, I didn't know. No.
The first guy I did not know.
No. Did not. This guy? Did not know.
Because I wouldn't want to be embarrassed.
I'm a man.
I'm a man.
That guy's a man. Just so you know, that guy, this guy, he's a man.
I'm a man.
He's a man.
I'm a man.
I'm a man, man, and I'm man enough.
I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Neat.
Man enough to cook my steak rare.
First of all, cooking your steak rare. What are you, a dog? You're supposed to cook. You cook your steak medium rare
Yeah.
to be considered a human man.
Yeah.
You know, there's infinite genders, but there's only one way to cook a steak to be a human man, and that's medium
Goddamn
rare.
right. Goddamn right, Jimmy.
Okay. All right. All right. By the way, this guy is okay. He's a man, just so you know.
I'm a man.
That's a man.
I'm a man.
I'm a man, man, and I'm man enough.
I'm man enough to enjoy a barrel-proof bourbon.
Neat.
Man enough to cook my steak rare.
Man enough to deadlift 500, then braid the out of my daughter's hair.
You think I'm afraid to rebuild a carburetor? I eat carburetors for breakfast.
What? How much syrup you putting on that carburetor? I didn't think you were afraid to fix a carburetor. Personally, I'm afraid to eat a carburetor. And I'm not afraid to say that. I'm man enough to say I'm afraid to eat a carburetor. And I'm terrified of having to shit one out. Okay. Okay, there's more to this.
I ain't afraid of bears.
That's what bear hugs are for.
I'll tell you another thing.
Wait, what? That's what bear okay, that's what bear hugs are for. Okay, honest question. Is that gay innuendo, or did this just turn into a Old Spice commercial?
Yeah, this is like one of those manly deodorants. It's really all over the place.
I'm not afraid of. Women.
I'm not afraid of women.
I'm not afraid of women.
They want to control
their bodies? I say go for it.
They want to use IVF to start a family? I'm not afraid of families.
They want to be childless cat ladies?
Have all the cats you want.
Woman wants to be president? Well, I hope she has the guts to look me right in the eye and accept my full-throated endorsement.
You know, like Kamala did to Willie Brown. Come on. Kidding. Come on. She was a beard. We're having fun. Come on. Come on. All right.
Because I'm man enough to support women.
Man enough to know what kind of donuts I like.
Man enough to admit I'm lost, even when I refuse to ask for directions.
What? What does that even mean? Don't you have a phone? It comes with directions. Get Waze. What are you talking about? Who wrote this commercial? An elderly cat lady who used to be an elderly cat man?
What a bizarre.
What a bizarre. This is.
Man enough to not ban young women from reading Little Women.
Or one of those pants books that the sisters like. I'm man enough to raw dog a flight. It sucked. Not worth it.
I'm man enough to be emotional.
He said I'm man enough to raw dog a flight. I don't even know what that means. Do you know what that means? Misha, do you know what that means? That's what I thought.
He wants to raw dog what?
A fight or a flight? I don't know let me back it up.
Pants books that the sisters like. I'm man enough to raw dog a flight.
What does that mean?
Oh my God. It means foregoing any of the in-flight perks. No in-flight entertainment or snacks or beverages.
Oh.
And in the most extreme cases, no drinking water or napping. So this is some weird, I guess, Zoomer talk? I've never heard of this.
I've never heard this either. Okay. So this is
Forbes
like
says it's
it's
a
like he's
trend,
flying Spirit Airlines and he doesn't want to pay for anything?
I don't think no one's man enough for that.
I know.
Okay.
It sucked. Not worth it.
I'm man enough to be emotional in front of my wife.
In front of my kids.
In front of my horse.
I'm man enough to tell you that I cry at Love Actually.
Good Will Hunting.
West Side Story.
That and Predator.
And I'm sick of so-called men domineering, belittling, and controlling women just so they can feel more powerful.
Boy, does this guy look uncomfortable saying all this stuff to? He's like, could they look stiffer and more like they're reading it? Because they are. By the way, and all these guys got paid to say this. They didn't show up for free.
I'm man enough to say these crap lines and look like a complete idiot. Hey, what do you mean showing emotion in front of his horse? That sounds like Vosh talk to me. I'm man enough to dress like a stuffed animal and blow a total stranger. Hey, I'm man enough to use a glory hole, even though I don't know what's on the other side.
I'm man enough to start crying when an old lady in front of me pulls out coupons at Ralph's.
That is manly. Wait,
I'm man enough, Kurt, to watch another man pleasure my wife.
While I'm handcuffed to a toilet wearing a T-shirt that says I'm with her.
I'm man enough to take an entire forearm inside my body.
I'm man enough to take a paddleboarding excursion with my lover, Barack Obama.
This is a real commercial. Let's watch.
That's not how my mama raised me.
I love women.
I love women who support their families.
Wait,
guys who have
did your mama raise you as a girl, then you got the operation? That's what I think.
I love women. No, really, I do. That's what it sounds like. Who says that?
It sounds like Jay-Z rapping.
Yeah.
Women who decide not to have families.
Women who take charge.
And I'm man enough to help them win.
They're laughing at you.
Wow.
You
Even
think those are
Kamala
real
and Tim are
farmers?
laughing.
No, I don't. Here's what Tim Pool said. Holy F, it's like Kamala never met a man before.
That's a trans man, I believe, currently. I think they actually were that stupid that they did their man commercial and they picked like a
trans man.
Because
trans men are men.
You cry at Love Actually? What?
What?
Have you ever seen Love Actually?
I've seen it. That's not a crier. Not a tearjerker.
Oh, wait, did you pay to see it? Maybe that's why. Maybe you paid good money.
It's a really good film.
I cried at Love Actually.
Dude, Love Actually is insane. It's one of the. Actually, I want to watch it and laugh at it.
Jimmy, that's the film Love Actually that we watched that we were so upset about because every woman is
economically lower than the guy she's in love with.
Yes.
Right? It's all that Cinderella. They're rescuing her.
Except Emma Thompson. She's the woman that has substance, and her husband has an affair.
And her husband has an affair on her.
Wait, what about the part where Liam Neeson, the single straight assuming dad, helps his 9-year-old son? This is pre 9/11. This movie helps he's really worried about his son's 11-year-old romance, and he goes, "You know what we need right now? Kate and Leo." And then they watch Titanic together. Remember that?
Oh my God!
Love Actually is the most appalling British. In fact, when I go back and look at it, they used to always talk about how batshit that movie is, but now the most idiotic shit you see in socially, Love Actually, England really is a source of a lot of awful. We've imported awful over there, but they did it first to us.
That is amazing. Then that.
So Kamala Harris is like, get me on these podcasts. So what's your favorite one? I want to do one that reminds me of what it was like for me before I was Miss Important Kamala Harris. They're like, well, there is a podcast called Call Her Daddy where they talk about college girls banging the mascot because they're bored of banging huge football players. Does that sound familiar? She's like, well, if you replace football players with mayor of San Francisco and other famous celebrities, then yes, that does sound very familiar. So Kamala Harris went on Call Her Daddy, the podcast well known for such topics as will I have a foursome and other interesting things like that. And I think that her performance was amazing. She really showed how dynamic, how important the things she has to say are. She is a woman that's in control. She's a woman who knows how to lead. You put her in the seat and you put her on the spot and she is going to spit hot fire that resonates with all the American people. I'll give you a super quick taste of what that looks like.
You're telling a survivor of a crime, of a violation to their body, they don't have a right to make a decision about what happens to their body next?
Okay, so I'm sure you guys can guess where that's going, right? So she's going to use the entire time that she's on this show, right? See, let's fast forward. Let's see if she's also still talking about abortion.
Those kids, her best friend's probably not with her because that's who's taking care of the kid.
Oh, okay, cool. Still talking about abortion. Let's see if there's anything else.
About IVF treatments and access.
Oh, again, more abortion. Let's just drag it a little further. Let's see if she's talking about abortion.
2 years ago, before Roe v. Wade was...
Oh, more. Okay, so we'll watch more of that. But just so we're clear, she spent the entire time on this show talking about abortion. Now, you might wonder, well, what kind of podcast is this? Because I'm sure you guys have seen Donald Trump do lots of shows, which get amazing comments and like ratios. And I would challenge you to install the plugin where you can still see the downvotes, okay? And then you can go look at, okay, here's the video of Trump on Theo Vaughn, likes and dislikes, and then go read the comments. Go look at how many positive comments there are, how many negative comments there are, okay? And then Look at him on the Nelk Boys, right? And I understand most people are going to be like, oh, right, but Theo and the Nelk Boys, those are bros. Those are like the comedy, MMA, like the comedy hybrid MMA bros. So of course people like Jesse on Fire are the ones who watch that stuff and then like it and comment. It's like, really? Well, do I watch Call Her Daddy? No, I had never seen Call Her Daddy. Now, why don't you take 2 seconds and subscribe to this channel and also like this video. I'm trying to hit 4. Podcast is called. And I'm sure that you guys are curious now. Well, what kind of podcast is Call Her Daddy? Well, like where Theo Von is kind of like comedy, so on, so forth, etc. And, the Nelk Boys are kind of the same thing. Impulsive is another one that he did where me and Logan found common ground. Actually, I'm sure I would find plenty of common ground with him as long as he stopped suing and destroying people's lives. But nonetheless, right? Another one that he did, very positive stuff. They're like personalities. Well, this is Alex. She's a personality. But like, what specifically do they talk about? So this one's called Threesomes. This one's called I Effed the Mascot. Okay. And I'll let you hear a little bit of this just so you can get an idea. Like, because this is the show that Kamala Harris decided to do. Okay. This is the show where she's like, I need to get out. I need to do what Trump's doing. So I'm going to do this show. And I think it kind of makes sense if you think about it, right?
And people think I'm making this shit up. I'm like, my entire life has always been me getting in trouble with my dean of students in high school to my soccer college. Like, it was just awful.
One of my wildest nights for D1 tennis, I'm at a D1 school, because you probably have some wild nights.
Yes.
One was I had a dick appointment. Okay. Like, those nights when you go out and you already have a dick appointment?
Oh my God, it's great.
So I was fucking these big football dudes, and I just wasn't having fun anymore, and I said, I need to fuck the next thing closest to an athlete, but not an athlete, and that's the mascot.
Yep. Now, let me tell you about the sponsor of this video, Prize Picks. If you've been watching my content for the last month at least, you've seen the description of this video, $50. I want to do one that reminds me of my own past, I want to do one that reminds me of what it was like for me before I was Miss Important Kamala Harris. They're like, well, there is a podcast called Call Her Daddy where they talk about, college girls banging the mascot because they're bored of banging huge football players. Does that sound familiar? She's like, well, if you replace football players with mayor of San Francisco and other famous celebrities, then yes, that does sound very familiar. They're like, okay, this is great. She's like, what other, are there any other episodes that we could look at that, that might suit my fancy? She's like, let's just look at random. How about let's look at this episode called Threesomes.
I have a really random thought for you about threesomes.
Oh, yeah.
And foursomes.
Yeah.
This is so strange. Okay. I have been in relationships before where I'm like, I will never have a threesome with you. I will never have a foursome with you. Get it the fuck out of my face, because I was just too much in the relationship, too far down. I'm at a weird place right now, and I have never in my life really thought about this. I've had a threesome before. I've never had a foursome.
So this is what they chose, right? So North Carolina is underwater, right? Israel is going to war with everyone, right? Another video coming today. Israel blew up Lebanon again. You got Ukraine and Russia, presidential election, all that stuff. And you're like, okay, so what could I do? The people running her campaign, what could I do to best demonstrate what my presidency will be like? They're like, well, you could A, get involved overseas in what could lead to World War III. You could B, go show leadership domestically, even more important, after a biblical flood just basically destroyed the lives of an entire region of the country, killed hundreds and thousands of people, hundreds and thousands. I didn't say hundreds of thousands. We don't know. We have no idea how many people got killed. But I saw a thing yesterday, the amount of affected area was the size of Belgium in North Carolina alone. So we could do that, that seems like a pressing issue that we could go show some leadership, right? That'd be a good use of our time, maybe. Or we could go on a podcast well known for talking about the sexual exploits of girls in their 20s and early 30s, and we could talk about abortion rights. And then that's it. Nothing else, just abortion rights. Because obviously the people who watch this show are people who like to get pregnant accidentally. And so this just seemed like, what's more important? Leadership in either a global conflict that we are directly involved in, saving people's lives in America and trying to rebuild the country, or using an issue, misrepresenting it completely as it relates to the election, and then, capitalizing on women who like to have casual sex and want access to abortions in a convenient manner. Not because they won't be able to get it, but because they want it as convenient as possible. Okay. And they went with option C, right? That's what they did. I can't even explain to you how ludicrous her appearance is. I'm going to show you a portion of this where it is unbelievable. Okay. Like I cannot explain to you how unbelievably stupid this entire thing is, okay? Because this is just the reality of the situation, okay? This is just the reality of the situation right here. Trump has publicly said he'll veto anything that relates to limiting any access to abortion at a federal level. Straight up. He has said this outright. And yet, that is the one issue that they have focused on like a laser. Every time they ask for something specific that these people are going to do if they're elected, that's what they go to every single time. Every single time. And I want you to listen to how absolutely ludicrous and egregious this talk track is for Kamala, because, you do a podcast like this, you have to kind of go off the cuff. You get like some talking, you get some talking points, but you're having a conversation. You can't read off a teleprompter. So this is her giving, in her best effort, trying to paint the current state of female reproductive rights as, like a Handmaid's Tale, right? So listen to this representation of what it's like in America now, because of Trump somehow, because Supreme Court justices that he put in took away Roe v. Wade. Okay. And by the way, one part you're not going to see in this is that Alex said that they had their constitutional right to abortion taken away. Okay. I didn't know that was written into the Constitution. Pretty sure it's not. But anyway, let's continue though and listen to Kamala Harris tell this story. We're picking up where Kamala Harris said, let me tell you a personal story about someone who needs an abortion and what they have to go through now.
The majority of women who receive abortion care are mothers. So if she's in a...
Is that true? Okay, so it turns out that actually is true per the data. Let's continue.
A state, and by the way, every state in the South, except for Virginia, has an abortion ban. Okay? So imagine she's in a state with an abortion ban. 1 out of 3 women are, by the way, in our country. And she's a mom. So she's going to have to figure out, one, God help her if she has affordable childcare. God help her if she has paid leave.
To be clear, where she's going with this is she is about to paint the fact that a woman who wants an abortion flying to a different state is equivalent to being dropped in the middle of the Saudi desert where they're going to have to walk 58 miles without water or food somehow. Okay, like literally just listen to this. Listen how absurd this is. What she is going to describe is a woman having to get childcare and then fly to another state.
Ladies and gentlemen, right now, it's very surprising, actually. Hurricane Milton has been upgraded to a Category 5 with 175-mile-an-hour winds. They are giving evacuation orders throughout Florida. There's photos and videos circulating of people GTFOing from Florida because they're expecting on the West Coast 8 to 12-foot storm surges. This is no joke. I am not the expert on what you should or should not be doing. I will only ask you to please consider what they are telling you right now. This is apparently the biggest storm in 100 years, and it's going to just slam as a major hurricane Category 5 right into Florida. And so for my friends and friends of the show who are out there, you might have to come visit and come on the show. And stay safe. But in the meantime, while we are facing this imminent disaster, we've got big news pertaining to the existing disaster in North Carolina and Georgia. And that is over the weekend, which I got to be honest, as much as people don't like Kamala Harris, it really is surprising to see that she tweeted out that the people of Lebanon are suffering. And so that we're going to give them an additional $157 million, bringing the total to $385 million. And everybody collectively lost their minds. How could you be so callous? I mean, right now, of all that, just don't say anything. It had to be Kamala Harris desperately trying to avoid becoming president by tweeting out that she was going to give away hundreds of millions of dollars when, guess what? The day before, FEMA announced $45 million would be going to the victims of Hurricane Helene, which is remarkable. A little bit more than 10% of what Lebanon's gotten this year. Can't say that I'm surprised. We'll talk about that. Plus, she appeared on Call Her Daddy, which actually the Call Her Daddy podcast is getting a backlash over this. Alex Cooper, the host, apparently has a lot of people watch her show who are mixed politics, and now she's pissed a lot of people off. Elon Musk has this great interview with Tucker Carlson where he says that, hey, look, the reason why a lot of billionaires are lining up behind Kamala Harris, it's because Trump's going to release the Epstein files. And then he makes a joke about how much prison time do you think I'm going to get if Kamala wins? So we'll talk about that, plus a lot of other news. Marjorie Taylor Greene in the news because she says that, yes, they can control the weather, and keeps it at that. And the media then put the word they in quotes. I can believe they did that. But before we get started, my friends, I got good news. Head over to boonieshq.com, which is I'll say this, Mr. Bocus Pro Model Skateboard has outsold me. Give us 5 stars. Tell everybody why we're the best show. And as I mentioned, joining us tonight to talk about this and so much more is Rob Dew.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
Who are you? What do you do?
What do I do? Well, I've done a lot of stuff.
She says she needs Congress. No. Then she says, we're looking at fixing it. Hold on, your numbers were quadrupled because of the 64 policies aimed at undercutting Trump's border policy. The flip-flopping. And that's the theme of today's show. Kamala Harris, and then we'll get to Howard Stern in a little bit. It's flip-flop time. Yeah, nice.
There you go. Right. Cool.
By the way, we're banning flip-flops at the office, okay?
Again? What? Yeah. Come on, man.
You know somebody's going to have a problem.
Yes, I do.
What? My bunions. They need to breathe.
One person in particular now.
That's why. You can't get your pedicures here at the office on the lunch table screaming, you're going to need a knife when you get to the corns.
Oh, it's once a week.
So. So a month ago, I told you that I believe Kamala Harris is in her own personal hell. I said, I think the bump that she received after the convention, that's about as good as she was going to get, that initial phase. The reason why is because if she has bad internal polling, she has to do something. Yeah. That's bad news because Kamala Harris always performs more poorly if she does anything. And I know what you're thinking. She should do some things. Incorrect. The answer is she needs to do nothing. Her best chance at riding this out is pulling the Biden strategy, speaking with nobody, because the more she speaks, the more she loses support. Here's the clip of us discussing that a while ago. Is now the nominee has not given a major interview or press conference, and then the very first interview that takes place, they move on very quickly. That should have been wall-to-wall coverage. It tells you that there's something there that they know doesn't play very well. And now the polls are reflecting it. So that's got to be scary. It's got to be scary for Kamala Harris, to all the defeatist conservatives. Right now, she's living in her own personal hell going, wait, the only way to write this is to get out there more, but every time I speak, people hate me. I hate me watching myself.
Well, I wouldn't do that, self-loathing.
So 60 Minutes. Bill Whitaker, who I'm now a fan of. I don't know his politics. I would imagine an old school Democrat. Also has a Sugar Ray Robinson look with the mustache and that kind of hair, the doo-wop hair. He interviewed Kamala Harris, and what you are about to witness can only be described as black on black crime. Let's first start off with Kamala's flip-flops.
They say that the reason so many voters don't know you is that you have changed your position on so many things. You were against fracking, now you're for it. You supported looser immigration policies, now you're tightening them up. You were for Medicare
Her face
for all.
going, oh no.
So many people don't truly know what you believe or what you stand for, and I know you've heard that.
In the last 4 years, I have been Vice President of the United States. Oh, and I have been traveling our country. Okay. And I have been listening to folks and seeking what is possible in terms of common ground. I believe in building consensus. We are a diverse people, geographically, regionally, in terms of where we are in our backgrounds. And what the American people do want is that we have leaders who can build consensus. Where we can figure out compromise and understand it's not a bad thing, as long as you don't compromise your values, to find common sense solutions. And that has been my approach.
All right. So as long as you don't compromise your values, common sense solutions. Can I ask you then, how is it not compromising your values? And how was banning fracking common sense then and opening up more fracking common sense now? What changed in the common sense? Typically speaking, common sense doesn't really change. It's unchanging, right? It's actually an overall filter that you apply to individual issues. You say, okay, I'm going to apply two things. You look at an issue, you go, okay, I'm going to apply data, facts, the latest research to see if new research illuminates this subject more, and common sense. You apply those two and see where they match up. Common sense is unchanging because it's supposed to be common, right? It's the common denominator. It's almost on the word. So I don't know what she's saying, but I know it's stupid. Here is her answer now, and you can see the host get progressively intolerant.
Yeah. Well, after that answer, yes. He has specific questions.
Yeah. You can see on his face there are a couple of moments where he's just like, this bitch.
So his posture. His posture is saying that.
Yeah.
He's like,
At one point, he doesn't even look up from his notes. He just goes, what about China? Or something like that. And she's just like, So all the references are available at loudhousecrider.com. Link in the description. We will be getting to the live stream in just a few moments. But here is him asking her about the border, and she doesn't answer the question. At the end of this clip, I'll give you the cheat sheet.
I've been covering the border for years. And so I know this is not a problem that started with your administration.
Correct.
But there was an historic flood of undocumented immigrants coming across the border the first 3 years of your administration. As a matter of fact, arrivals quadrupled from the last year of President Trump. Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did?
It's a long-standing problem. And solutions are at hand. And from day one, literally, we have been offering solutions.
What I was asking was it a mistake to kind of allow that flood to happen in the first place?
I think the policies that we have been proposing are about fixing a problem, not promoting a problem.
Your problem.
Okay?
But the numbers did quadruple.
The numbers today, because of what we have done, we have cut the flow of illegal immigration by half. We have cut the flow of fentanyl by half, but we need Congress to be able to act to actually fix the problem.
Okay, first off, no, you don't. Second, if you quadruple it and then cut it in half, that's still double. That's not good. That's double the problem. It's double. You're going to bring the Devilment twins in to describe it for us? Also, let me be really clear. It did quadruple. We've given you those numbers. A little bit more than quadruple, actually. I'll tell you exactly why. There were 64 border policies aimed at deliberately undercutting Trump. That's why there is a direct contrast with Donald Trump. She says she needs Congress. No. Then she says, we're looking at fixing it. Hold on, your numbers were quadrupled because of the 64 policies aimed at undercutting Trump's border policy, which again, cut it to a number that was less than quadruple. References available, link in the description. And then when she says we're aiming at solving the problem now, the bill that she is speaking of, the one that cut it in half, it was an executive action. So she didn't need the House either. Nothing that she has just said is even close to the vicinity of correct. And Sugar Ray knows it.
He did. And he tried to press her, like, why didn't you do it then? And she's saying we need Congress because they want to lay this at the feet of the Republicans, saying that the Republicans didn't vote for it because Donald Trump wanted an issue to run on, and that is absolutely categorically false. They could have done an executive order, just like Trump did, to make sure the border was more secure until Congress acted.
Yes. By the way, shut up. Subscribe to SiriusXM. All the Howard you can eat.
Yes, call them once, and they'll call you for the rest of your life. Every 3 days.
I particularly prefer satellite radio when I have access to the internet in 2024.
It's got a button in my car.
It's like the intermediate step between terrestrial radio and the internet that never needed to take place. Because the internet already existed.
Are they paying you for this plug?
They're not.
It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. It's a pretty good plug. I mean, think about it. You were like, oh man, I don't want to listen to satellite. I don't want to listen to terrestrial radio anymore. There's so many ads. Where can I go? It's almost like, I don't know, if there's some kind of a free service out there where I can listen to more content than I could possibly consume in a lifetime. Is there a pay service that resembles the old crappy terrestrial radio and still has ads? and isn't available ubiquitously like the internet, a satellite radio. Say no more.
Hands-free CarPlay is too hard for me.
Yes, yes.
So I got to have it on the dial. I got to go through 5 sources before I get to it. Hey, did you notice that you know what she looks like in that interview? She looks like, have you ever seen this? Yeah. Have you seen these videos online of like guys catching their wife cheating?
Yes, yes.
It's like, Justin, no, listen, Justin, no, don't hurt him.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not his fault.
Well, he pins her down on spending, and we had to separate this into 2 parts because it's just so much fun. And you can see him, like I said, getting progressively intolerant. And if you listen, that's the sound of the betting odds changing again. Here is Kamala Harris on how she is going to pay for all of this stuff.
You want to expand the child tax credit.
Yes, I do.
You want to give tax breaks to first-time home buyers.
Yes.
And people starting small businesses.
Correct.
But it is estimated by the nonpartisan...
She is so dumb. She actually thinks, she's like, yes, correct. That's right. She actually thinks she's about to get a layup. That's a horrible lawyer. He's laying a trap. She's like the woman in every horror film who goes in and behaves in a way that you say is far too dumb. How did she not see this coming? Like, guys, you turned off the lights? Turn them on. You'll be sorry. I'm coming in. Stop playing games.
Yeah, and Bill Whitaker's the black guy in the audience going, bitch, don't open the door.
Yes, exactly.
The lights off.
Run out of the house, not up the stairs.
And at one point when he's interviewing her, he actually under his breath went, Q, 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 Q.
She chose the form of Gozer the Destroyer, and she thought black 60 Minutes anchor.
Yes, she really thought so. She's like, yes, correct. All right, just rewind it a few seconds if you can, Toolman. Yeah. And just see how she really is.
She thinks the next question is, how hard is it to be perfect?
Oh.
But then he hits her with, I guess you could say a bait and switch, but it used to be called journalism.
Tax credit.
Yes, I do.
You want to give tax breaks to first-time home buyers.
Yes.
And people starting small businesses.
Correct.
But it is estimated by the Nonpartisan Committee for Responsible Federal Budget that your economic plan would add $3 trillion to the federal deficit over the next decade. How are you going to pay for that?
Okay, so the other economists that have reviewed
not the ones you
plan
cited
versus my opponent and determined that my economic plan would strengthen America's economy, his would weaken it.
Watch.
But my plan, Bill, if you don't mind, my plan.
She had to get it in. She get it in the debate. She has to.
Saying
let me finish.
That when you invest in small businesses, you invest in the middle class, and you strengthen America's economy. Small businesses are part of the backbone of America's economy.
Talking points that we have seen before. Don't worry, though. Bill follows up here.
You want to expand the child tax
it's the next one.
Yes,
the next slip.
You want to give tax breaks to...
Here's his follow-up.
All right, there we go.
But pardon me, Madam Vice President. The question was, how are you going to pay for it?
One of the things is I'm going to make sure that the richest among us who can afford it pay their fair share in taxes. It is not right that teachers and nurses and firefighters are paying a higher tax rate than billionaires and the biggest corporations.
Untrue.
And I plan on making that fair.
But we're dealing with the real world here.
The real world includes...
How are you going to get this through Congress?
When you talk quietly with a lot of folks in Congress, they know exactly what I'm talking about because their constituents know exactly
it's volume
what I'm
reliant.
talking about. Their constituents are those firefighters and teachers and nurses. Their constituents are middle-class, hardworking folk.
And Congress has shown no inclination to move in your direction.
I disagree with you.
Well, agree to disagree.
It's just... it's, by the way, we do have exclusive. At this point, Kamala's handlers were off camera advising her. I appreciate their passion.
Throw it in. What's the matter with you?
Miss Harris. He's kind of like a black Jason Bateman. He's like, yeah, Miss Harris, we deal in the real world. Okay. So,
yeah. She should have seen by his demeanor, like, this is not going to go well. When he started that question out, like, his tone of voice was leading you to, like, hey, I'm about to hit you with reality. Yeah. By the way, when Kamala Harris answers these questions and says, the teachers and firefighters and people like that shouldn't be paying a higher tax rate, that's absolutely categorically false.
Of course it is.
Right? Yeah. Average American paid about 15% in income tax. Average corporation paid about 21%. That they're not even giving you a real bad answer. They're just lying.
Well, yes, you're correct. We've already debunked that, but today I just want to laugh a little bit.
Okay, fine.
And so
fine.
if you want to laugh, you have to laugh through your fingers in the next one.
A little bit.
Where Kamala answers about her gun ownership.
Oh. You recently surprised people when you said that you are a gun owner. And then if someone came to your
That
house,
was not the first time I've talked about it. That's not the
When
first
did your
time I've
ascot
talked
discuss
about
it? So what kind of gun
Been
do you
banging
own
for
and
years,
when
dog.
and why did you get it?
I have a Glock.
Oh.
And I've had it for quite some time. And I mean, look, Bill, my background is in law enforcement. And,
No, it's not.
So there you go. Yes. Of course I have. At a shooting range.
That means no.
Yes, of course I have.
I was in law enforcement, so there you go. Yeah, let's ask local law enforcement how they feel about district prosecutors. Also, she named. I don't believe her. I'm sorry, I don't believe her because of the way she answered. I had a drunken carpenter work for our family one time. We managed properties when we were young. Basically, we were supers, inherited from it. And this guy was brilliant when he was sober. But he was unfortunately very rarely sober. I remember one time everything was just all wonky, cockeyed, and cattywampus, and he was barely able to stand up. And my dad said, "Hey, yeah, where'd you go there for an hour?" He's like, "I went." He was French Canadian. "I went to lunch." My dad was like, "Oh, what'd you have?" And I swear to you, this is about the amount of time it took him to answer. Hamburger. That's her Glock.
It's a Glock. It's a, oh shit, what's the number?
17,
I've had it for some time.
What's the caliber? Look, I'm not going to get into it because it's a lie.
It's a Gen 6.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I was looking at her eyes, just like, staring into it, like, oh, it's empty. She's making it up.
And all right, final question that was asked on this was on foreign policy, and it goes poorly as well.
Let's hit on some foreign policy. Which foreign country do you consider to be our greatest adversary?
I think there's an obvious one in mind, which is Iran. Iran has American blood on their hands. Okay?
What?
This attack on Israel, 200 ballistic missiles.
He follows up
we need to do
on her own answer. Watch.
To ensure that Iran never achieves the ability to be a nuclear power. That is one of my highest priorities.
So if you have
that
proof
must be.
that Iran is building a nuclear weapon, would you take military action?
I'm not going to talk about hypotheticals at this moment.
Watch this.
What about China?
China, first of all, we must win a competition for the 21st century with China. We must be able to compete and win. We should not seek conflict. But we have to understand that there are parameters in which we must operate that include ensuring, for example, that we protect American business interests.
So say if China attacks Taiwan, would we use military force to support Taiwan?
Bill, I'm not going to get into hypotheticals.
Hold on a second. You're running for president. Every question is a hypothetical.
Yeah, true. What would you do on this?
If I was president, I would, okay, what about Iran? I'm not going to answer hypotheticals. You just did it like 19 times poorly, but you did it.
Ma'am, you're an idiot. You said Iran. Could you elaborate?
She has a lot of hypothetical ideas and thoughts about Donald Trump, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's what you say when you're like, I've talked myself into a bit of a hole here.
Yes.
And I don't want to dig any further.
Well, that's how they refer to him around the Kamala Harris campaign. Bill Whitaker is the black hole.
Don't pull it. All right, there's more where that came from because we're going to see how 60 Minutes deceptively edited that footage that you just saw. So you can't be gaslit because we are outside the gaslighting bubble. Now, during that clip block, Scott learned how to see the dislikes, and he's psyched. You get the dislikes back. There's a little browser plug-in, right, Scott? And,
dude, I'm so excited. That's so great. Oh my God, that changes everything.
You can see why YouTube wants to hide the dislikes on, especially during political campaigns. This is convenient because if people saw 73,000 downvotes for that video and just a few upvotes, like that's a ratioing if I've ever seen one. And that would not be good, but that's truth. Like that's the truth that they're hiding from you right there.
Yep.
Right?
And I remember when this happened, like we were covering it, and in our little news segment back in the day when it happened in real time. And it was because of National Geographic or Disney Plus, one of these organizations, there were several like Fauci documentaries coming out at the same time. I think it was the National Geographic Fauci documentary. It came out and immediately it was just getting ratioed to hell. And so that's when they got rid of the dislike button. And I think it was because of this Fauci documentary that came out. And I just like looked at the trailer. 42,000 dislikes, 1.6 thousand upvotes. So it's like, dude, and I remember at the time too, Corbett was covering it and he had such a good quote about it where he said that they're literally having to break their own systems to maintain the narrative.
Yeah.
I just thought that was such a good.
That's hashtag winning on our side. Not like Charlie Sheen used it. All right. So, theater kids pretending. These guys look familiar. Have I seen them before in this episode someplace? Because I think
man. It's ma'am. I mean,
who dropped this in production chat? LD? Did you find this or you Scott? Yeah, LD.
Yeah, it was LD. Yeah.
All right. So he found this. Now I have not verified this. Have any of us cared enough to verify this? But this appears to be actors acting, and I think Kurt and Jimmy already commented on that, so we don't need to look more into that. But there it is. There you have it, as they say in the business. There you have it. All right. So now, coming up, we got more excitement because Kamala was not done. You would think after like Call Her Daddy and that 60 Minutes joint where she got smoked, she'd quit for the week, take a week off, maybe take some feedback. But no, there was no course correction throughout the entire week, which I found to be really interesting. Like, how can they afford to burn her this much right before the election? What is the plan? This is like seeing, like, in a football game, you need your running back to be able to, carry the ball a certain number of times, but you're running them out just, during the game, and he's not going to have so I'm just wondering where the energy is going to come from. Is it coming from a predetermined selection that's already happened and we're just watching the theatrics of it? Possibly, because Time Magazine told us they fortified the election last time. And they did it for the good of American democracy. And democracy is, democracy, Socrates famously was not a fan of democracy because democracy killed Socrates, right? And democracy in many other ways is where a few can gang up against the group and make a very unequal situation, which is why we have a constitutional republic. And, going back to that previous clip, I don't remember that right being in the Constitution, but I could have misread it. So in this, they changed the answers. So Kamala's, see, I did it right again. I'm getting used to it. Kamala's performance on 60 Minutes was okay for the internet, but they found out quickly from the internet what people thought of it. And they're like, well, we can't put this on TV because that's the main demographic they're trying to gaslight. So they're going to have to change it around a little bit, just a little bit. And maybe no one will notice, or maybe Jimmy Dore had too much time on his hands that day and he noticed. And so we're going to bring you his clip. You won't believe how CBS deceptively edited Kamala's interview. And then we have Mark Dice covering Kamala's, see, I did it right again. I'm getting good at this. Her appearance on the Colbert Report. Colbert, whatever that dude, Stephen Colbert, the shill sellout comedian dude, who was really never funny. He hosted her over there, and apparently there's some antics that Dice saw fit to cover. So we're going to check that out because I want to get a good, like I said, mosaic of these appearances. We don't have time for the Howard Stern appearance, nor do we have time to play the source footage of Howard Stern in blackface using the N-word several times, which is what Crowder did right before they went live with the coverage of that interview that happened on whatever that satellite radio station is that they were talking about. And that happened this week. They thought that was a good idea, and that happened. So in reality, there was a bunch of damage done to her public perception, public persona, respect level, all these different things. And I don't think that damage is really going to hurt her going forward in the future. And now my question is why? How does that work? But I think we'll see in the coming weeks how they work it. There's October for a reason. They're going to have October surprise party, or we'll have our October surprise party. I don't know. One of those two will happen. So we're going to go to Jimmy Dore, and then we're going to Mark Dice, and then we're going to, you'll see there's a new campaign ad again, new one. And then we'll come back.
Hey, come see us on tour. We'll be in Tempe, Arizona, Los Angeles, Columbus, Ohio, Dayton, Ohio, Cincinnati, Lexington, Burbank, California, and Honolulu. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets. Don't go anywhere else. I'm going to show you this. This is turns out this is real. I thought this was a kind of some kind of a fake when I saw it on Twitter.
Why?
Because it just seemed so brazen. But of course, it's not. When CNN did their interview with Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, they did a 40-minute interview, and then they cut out half of it.
I appreciate that they did that.
They didn't. They listened. They took notes from Kamala Harris's campaign and cut out half of it.
We got to edit her on the fly.
So now 60 Minutes is doing something similar. You're not going to believe what happened. 60 Minutes cut Kamala Harris's nonsense answer on Israel and replaced it with a completely separate sentence she said earlier in the interview. Mixing and matching questions and answers. This isn't journalism, it's fraud. So now this guy actually did a good interview. I thought as far as interviews go, if you watch it, he asked good questions. I think he did as good as you could get on corporate TV. So I will.
How did he get in there to even ask real questions?
I don't know. And I guess they thought editing it would make Kamala Harris more favorable because most people can't stand 5 minutes of her, let alone 60 minutes. Okay.
Well, why'd they pick this part to edit? That's my question. Because all the other things that she sucked.
Yeah. Watch this edit. So I'll show it to you. This is the short. I'll show you the short version. Then I'll show you a little bit of a longer version. Here's the question and answer she gave.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems
so that was her word salad garbage. She's like a taxi driver who tries to take you the long way so she could get every penny out of you, except she does it with words. It's
like an ex-girlfriend I had pitching her jokes to me and me trying to explain she's got to shorten it.
Yeah,
and her not listening.
So I'm going to show them to you back to back. Here, let's show that this is the actual question and the actual answer, and then the question again with the fake answer that they just inserted at 60 Minutes. Watch this.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it's
what she means is we're stalling while military contractors rob the planet blind. Mm-hmm. That's what she means. But here's the question again, and here's the fake answer that 60 Minutes put in.
I forgot the question from that.
Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We are not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
But it seems.
Wait, what?
So
you're pursuing being clear about the need for. You're not going to stop pursuing. What did she just say?
Neither of those answers made any sense. How did they even pick which one to switch it with?
I've forgotten the question both times.
So I went. So they're talking about how Benjamin Netanyahu, because she keeps saying we are, intervening and negotiating and talking with him to get, and he's like, yeah, but he's not listening. He's doing whatever he wants. So that's what the question was. Doesn't seem like he's listening to you. Because if you are claiming that you're urging Netanyahu to do these different things, it looks like he's not listening to you. That was his question.
And what would have impressed me? If she went, we're going to stop doing his dry cleaning when him and his bitch wife come and hand it to our assistants.
So I tweeted this out and I asked, is this real? Because I didn't think it could be real. And Lauren,
I tweeted, is this a lateral move? I don't understand why they bothered.
And Laura Powell says both versions are still available on 60 Minutes YouTube channel. These links take you to that same question. In addition to substituting an entirely different answer to the question, 60 Minutes edited Kamala Harris's response to the previous question so much that it is not an accurate representation of what she said. So,
what did she say?
I don't have. So here's a little bit of a longer version.
supply Israel with billions of dollars in military aid.
So he's saying, you guys are giving them billions of dollars. You have leverage. Why doesn't he listen to when you tell him what to do? That's basically what he's saying. But here we go.
Supply Israel with billions of dollars in military aid. Mm-hmm. And yet Prime Minister Netanyahu seems to be charting his own course. The Biden-Harris administration has pressed him to agree to a ceasefire. He's resisted. You urged him not to go into Lebanon. He went in anyway. He has promised to make Iran pay for the missile attack, and that has the potential of expanding the war. Does the U.S. have no sway over Prime Minister Netanyahu?
The aid that we have given Israel allowed Israel to defend itself against 200 ballistic missiles that were just meant to attack the Israelis and the people of Israel. And when we think about the threat that Hamas, Hezbollah presents, Iran, I think that it is without any question our imperative to do what we can to allow Israel to defend itself against those kinds of attacks. Now, the work that we do diplomatically with the leadership of Israel is an ongoing pursuit around making clear our principles, which include the need for humanitarian aid, the need for this war to end, the need for a deal to be done, which would release the hostages and create a ceasefire. And we're not going to stop in terms of putting that pressure on Israel.
Thank you for editing. Thank you for editing it. You know what? Thank you. Thank you, 60 Minutes.
And we're not going to stop. We're not going to stop putting pressure. What she means is we're not going to stop giving him everything he wants so he can continue doing exactly this and causing a larger war.
We all know this.
Yep.
Including Arab leaders.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
Whoa, wow.
Wow. You know what? I got to give this to Bibi Netanyahu. When you ask him a question, he'll draw you a picture of a cartoon bomb and make it real clear what his answer is. You know?
They should have just put the Doritos answer in there again.
He should have asked her about Doritos. It's not a word salad. That's a turd salad she does.
Here it is.
We supply Israel with billions of dollars in military aid. Mm-hmm. And yet Prime Minister Netanyahu seems to be charting his own course. The Biden-Harris administration has pressed him to agree to a ceasefire. He's resisted. You urged him not to go into Lebanon. He went in anyway. Does the U.S. have no sway over Prime Minister Netanyahu?
The work that we do diplomatically with the leadership of Israel is an ongoing pursuit around making clear our principles.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
So did you see how they cleaned that up for her? I mean, it's still horrible. It's still horrible, but do you see how much shorter the second one was than the first one? She just talked and talked, and they cut all that out.
I got to give it to them. They really did a service with that.
They really did do a service.
I almost quit the show while you were playing that. I can't take hearing her talk.
So
make fun of her.
So I went back today before the show to check, see if there was a community note. As of this airing, there was no community note on that. Nobody claims it didn't happen.
As part of her new media blitz in the final few weeks before the election, Kamala Harris sat down last night with Stephen Colbert on CBS's The Late Show and produced what may be the biggest piece of cringe content ever. Maybe even eclipsing when the Fonz went water skiing in his trademark leather jacket back in the 1970s in an episode of Happy Days and jumped over a shark, which then coined the term jumping the shark, signifying that it was the beginning of the end of a television season because they had run out of ideas and the series had become ridiculous. Brace yourself. The cringe is coming in 3, 2,
One of the old saws is they just want somebody they can have a beer with.
The voters, how the voters connect with the candidates.
So would you like to have a beer with me so I can tell people what that's like? Okay.
She's laughing.
Now, we asked ahead of time because I can't just be giving a drink to the Vice President of the United States without asking. You asked for Miller High Life.
Stop laughing.
I'm just curious.
Okay, the last time I had beer was at a baseball game with Doug.
Okay. Probably 15 or 20 years ago.
Cheers.
Cheers.
There you go.
Okay.
Ooh.
That
tastes like the
is
beautiful
not
city
how
of
you
Milwaukee,
drink.
The
Wisconsin.
champagne of beers.
There you go.
Kamala Harris pretending to drink a beer in order to connect with voters makes Elizabeth Warren look like a frat boy on a Friday night.
My husband Bruce is.
Remember her live stream when she announced that she was running for president back in 2020
So this is my sweetie. Hello.
on New Year's Eve, doing her little live stream with her hubby. She thanked him for being there and then did this.
So who've we got here so far?
Stay tuned because there's plenty more to come in this video, but real quick, subscribe to my channel for new here. What country flooding it with tens of millions of illegal aliens and bankrupting us? Her answer was nothing.
Well, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Okay, so not only would she not do anything differently, she just took credit as being part of all of the decisions that have been destroying our country over the last 4 years. So last night, Stephen Colbert tried to help her recover from that incredible blunder by asking her the same question. And her answer this time was her usual word salad.
Of course.
Polling shows that a lot of people, especially independent voters, really want this to be a change election, and that they tend to break for you in terms of thinking about change. You are a member of the President administration. Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I noticed.
And so that would be one change in terms of... But also, I think it's important to say with, 28 days to go, I'm not Donald Trump. And so when we think about the significance of what this...
So no policies, no mistakes, no changes from the current administration. It's just that you need to vote for her because she's not Donald Trump. The media is working 24/7 trying to rehabilitate her image and sell her to the American people. But thankfully, not everyone is drinking the Kool-Aid, including this 11-year-old black girl.
It'd be good for us to have a black woman as president for the first time in history. Yeah. But my vote's kind of still on Trump.
Yeah. Kamala also unveiled a new accent last night, sounding like a Jamaican, because I guess she is partially of Jamaican heritage, and there's the big controversy about whether or not she's black, because she used to market herself as the first Indian attorney general in California, first Indian senator in California, but now, of course, she's black. And so last night, she sounded like this.
Have you no empathy, man? For the suffering of...
Have you no empathy, man? You know the suffering.
Have you no empathy, man? For the suffering of other people. Have you no sense of purpose?
Oh, I have a purpose, all right. My purpose is to do everything in my power to stop you from becoming the next president of the United States. Of course, the liberal media industrial complex's goal is the exact opposite, and the old bags on The View are upset that, well, people like me exist and are able to present a different message than the mainstream.
People are saying this could be the closest election in a century. Yeah. I personally cannot understand why anyone would vote for him. A lot of it is, I think, he's getting bad information. People are getting bad information from other channels. But do you have an explanation for this at all?
Well, let me just add.
Oh, did you see her rubber nose? That's a nonverbal tell. That's a nonverbal gesture right there, meaning that she is about to lie. And this is what a bubble, or echo chamber these lunatics live in. They just can't even fathom why so many people don't like her and instead want to save America by voting for Donald Trump.
But do you have an explanation for this at all?
You can even hear her gulping on her microphone. You hear that?
But do you have an explanation for this at all?
Well, let me just add to your list. I mean,
it's only an hour's
There she's laughing again.
including he has said he would terminate the Constitution of the United States.
Yeah.
And there she is doing what the Democrats always do, accusing Donald Trump of the very thing that they themselves are guilty of. Donald Trump warned that the Democrat policies are going to terminate the Constitution. And so now, of course, as usual, they're saying that he said that if he's elected, he would terminate the Constitution. And they keep accusing us of spreading fake news and conspiracy theories about FEMA by pointing out how much money has been wasted and resources wasted on the illegal aliens who have been invading our country. Like this New York Times article from just back in May of this year, admitting why New York City hotel rooms are so expensive. The average hotel room rate in the city is over $300 a night, a record, a major reason 1 out of every 5 hotels is now a shelter for the illegal aliens, contributing to a shortage of tourist lodging and, of course, wasting our tax dollars and jacking up the price of hotel rooms throughout all of New York. They used to brag about using our tax dollars to take care of the future Democrat voters, but now they want clips like this dumped down the memory hole.
So now the White House says that for those cities that they know are receiving an influx of migrants, that includes New York City, as you just said, Chicago, and here in Washington, D.C., there is somebody from FEMA, that federal emergency management agency, ready and willing to really help those cities when it comes to management of these influx of migrants, including reimbursing some of those cities. That's a part of the kind of the response that the White House is now giving.
When she says managing the influx of migrants, she means using our tax dollars to literally pay to put them up in 4-star hotels throughout all of Manhattan. Thankfully, Peter Doocy at Fox News is still part of the White House press corps who can confront Karine Jean-Pierre about these issues.
The administration has money to send to Lebanon without Congress coming back.
He's talking about Kamala announcing that she's giving Lebanon $150 million more of our tax dollars because Israel attacked them using their explosive pagers, because we're always cleaning up Israel's mess.
The administration has money to send to Lebanon without Congress coming back. But Congress does have to come back to approve money to send to people in North Carolina. Do I have that right?
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, so this was a meme. This was a cheap fake, as she would say. But she didn't answer the question. She did get upset and did leave. But this is a joke. This is not, however, this is just another article from 2 years ago from New York City. Federal funds approved for cities handling the influx of asylum seekers. $800 million through FEMA, of course, to help the future Democrat voters become settled in New York. Oh, and James O'Keefe just posted a new investigation into MSNBC where they got one of their senior producers to sit down and admit that whatever Kamala's agenda is for the day is MSNBC's agenda.
So do you feel like MSNBC is doing enough to help the Harris campaign?
I mean, they're doing all they can.
Meet Basil Hamden, a writer and producer for MSNBC's weekend show, Iman. Basil also reveals that, quote, what her message of the day is their MSNBC's message of the day.
What have they done to help the Harris campaign?
Amplify her message. What her message of the day is their message of the day.
Hamden revealed that MSNBC is the Democratic Party's mouthpiece and is doing anything to get Kamala elected. Hamden says this news network is indistinguishable from the Democratic Party.
So is MSNBC just like doing whatever it takes to get Kamala elected?
Yes. The cameras.
Of course. No disrespect to James, because he does fantastic work, but this isn't exactly like a big bombshell, but it is interesting to actually just see one of the producers on camera admitting what it is that they're doing. Me, on the other hand, I'm just an old school independent YouTuber, and subscribe to my channel for news.
You may have noticed recently a number of high-profile Hollywood celebrities endorsing me.
I'm white, I'm a dude, and I'm for Harris.
I'm supporting Kamala Harris for president and Tim Walz for vice president.
Vote for Kamala. I need to get out and start campaigning for Kamala Harris for president.
And you may have also noticed that these endorsements have all come around the same time as P. Diddy's indictment for some pretty heinous crimes. In fact, in the office, we like to call these supporters friends of Diddy.
It's just been unsealed. Combs is being charged with racketeering conspiracy, alleging he ran an enterprise, that he engaged in sex trafficking, forced labor, or kidnapping, arson, and other crimes. He's also charged with sex trafficking by force.
Well, let me put the rumors to rest. These celebrity endorsements have been in no way coerced whatsoever. The deep state is not blackmailing Hollywood celebrities into enthusiastically endorsing me for president. That would be ridiculous.
I'm just so appreciative of Kamala. I've always been a fan of Kamala.
Kind of going from a stop Trump mode into a go Kamala mode.
Beautiful, wonderful Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris!
These celebrities simply recognize the amazing job the Biden-Harris administration has done over the past 4 years, and they want 4 more years of the same.
Would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact. And if you're not convinced by these amazing people who have definitely not been blackmailed, listen to the man, P. Diddy himself.
The number one priority is to get Trump out of office. White men like Trump need to be banished. Trump gotta go. The tribe of people that have the responsibility and really should be scared to death of this man is white people. If this man is elected, we're not standing by no more getting killed. We're on the verge of a race war. The only thing that will prevent bloodshed is let's get Trump out of office. If Trump's in office, there's gonna be bloodshed. We're not gonna keep on playing with these people. This is a new Negro. And that new Negro, that new black person is not scared, is not fearful. They're not afraid to die. They understand that this is life and that violence has to be an option. I started in 2004 with Vote or Die, and this is the evolution of that thought.
Vote or die, motherfucker, vote or die. Get out there and vote or I will motherfucking kill you.
That's definitely not a threat. Seriously, though, vote or die. You know, if Trump wins and the Epstein list comes out, that's going to be some crazy shit.
Mr. Reagan.
You may have noticed.
All right, that last part was a meme, but the rest of that reflects reality. Scott, do you have any thoughts on that block? Because there was a lot of Kamala media coverage to follow this past week. I mean, we didn't even get to cover the Howard Stern stuff, and we don't have time because we got to get to Hurricane Helene rescue efforts, which still has Kamala. She's in those stories too somehow.
Yeah.
But what do you think, man?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so much in there. I was gonna do a Diddy joke, but I'm just gonna
save it for later.
No, yeah, I got one.
The innuendo goes to the end of the episode.
It's too much for this is a somewhat family friendly show. I'm just gonna save it. I'm gonna maintain my dignity. But it was really interesting in the 60-minute clip where he was basically saying, hey, you guys, you don't have any control over Israel? Like, what's going on here? Which is, you could like interpret that as a very anti-Semitic trope that America is an occupied country that is controlled and run by Israel. And I think that guy should be definitely canceled for his anti-Semitic views.
I think so too, but I think you just also observed why they edited it and only that part of the interview. Like, no one else cares about anything else she said, word salad the whole time. But somebody from the office was in their office saying, we read through your script and you're going to have to edit this to make us not look like shenanigans are going on.
Yeah, you can't imply that America's an occupied country. You can't do that.
You can't say that stuff. But he said it.
Yeah, exactly.
He said it. 60 Minutes said it, which I thought was surprising and somewhat encouraging, as if they're backing off. It's almost like it's like a bunch of horses running together and then one just kind of stops, but those horses are running off a cliff. You know what I'm saying? And that was 60 Minutes kind of distancing itself. And I also have an SNL clip we're going to play in a minute, kind of distancing themselves, right? And the one where in SNL, they make fun of her drinking wine, but that was before she went on Colbert and drank like beer from Milwaukee so she can get the Wisconsin vote. type of thing, right? That's a swing state thing. People don't get that watching the Daily Show. They don't understand, or Colbert. That's sophisticated propaganda. If you want to see the propaganda meisters, like watch Daily Show, and I guess Colbert, he still has a show.
Yeah. How dare she not do Milwaukee's best? I mean, come on. Everybody knows
the beast,
Milwaukee's,
man.
yeah, everyone knows Milwaukee's best is
National Bohemian's my favorite, dude.
Oh my God. Dude, some dark memories of Milwaukee's best. Okay, thank you.
Mickey's Big Mouth.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah.
All right. So malt liquors aside, we do have some clips between the block. I want to play this. I mentioned the Sam Elliott Men for Kamala ad. You might not have seen it. So I am going to run it. It's from the Lincoln Project. It's a real ad. And then we're going to run that right into the Saturday Night Live cold open that kind of makes fun of their own folks, which they don't usually do. They don't usually take the piss out of them like this, because this is like more personal angles that they're commenting on. And anyway, so I don't know. I don't believe SNL will ever be funny again, but this was their attempt. And I noticed the attempt, and I give them a golf clap for that one. But yeah, let's check it out, and then we'll get into the next block and change stories.
I can't believe we're having this conversation again. So here we go. You know who the candidates are. You know what's at stake. One candidate promises a divided America filled with lies and hate. And one stands for change. Kamala Harris has more courage, more honor, more guts than this guy ever had. So you decide, are we really going back down that same fucking broken road, or are we moving forward towards hope, towards freedom, towards change?
We know a strong middle class has always been critical to America's success.
There's promise that lies in change, and the time for change is now. So what the hell are you waiting for? Because if it's the woman thing, it's time to get over that. It's time for hope, for change. It's time to be a man and vote for a woman.
All right, we're going to have to pause it. We can't just go to Saturday Night Live after that, because, you know, as a study in propaganda, that commercial is remarkable. If you'd rewind it, LD, to the beginning, how he kind of sets it up, Trump's going to divide the country, and they show those crossroads, and then they cut to Confederate flag, like he's in support of slavery. And I find that ironic, because the people who produce that commercial, the Democrats who benefit from that commercial, I'm going to show their history in a second. So can you put that back up for him?
Filled with lies and hate.
Did you catch that Confederate flag right there? Like he said, there's both people on good sides. That's what they're playing into. That's not true. That's not what he said. You could watch the whole tape and be an educated person, and you do have a chance to outgrow that ignorance that has been precipitated on people by mainstream media. And we're going to see it again from the Daily Show. They got some great stuff tonight that we're going to clip out. But I wanted to show, because the accusation is Trump is associated with like white supremacy, Confederacy, slavery, that whole notion, right? Well, that's really interesting. I feel like being Columbo right here, like believing your story, but what about how you guys started? Like when did it change? Because if you go back to the Civil War period, which is when the Confederate flag was kind of a big deal, right? If you go back then, there's this character called August Belmont, and he worked with Confederate diplomat John Slidell, and he's known these days for thoroughbred horse racing. We can get to that because that's the sport of kings, right? But this does precipitate down into American 20th, 21st century type of history. So who is August Belmont, and why should we care? Let's go over to our browser, because we know how to use the internet to empower ourselves through asking substantial questions and finding verifiable answers. This is a documentary history of the Democratic Party, which traditionally supported slavery. So it's really ironic that they would try to take that Confederate flag and make it on Trump. But that is what they do, right? They do a thing and they blame it on their opposition. And that's worked for 150 years pretty successfully, because today people don't know. And, people of color who are in the Democratic Party don't know the history of slavery and that party that never really changed, but did get rebranded through the 1960s after they killed JFK. So anyway, August Belmont, Senior, because August Belmont Jr. most of the time didn't use junior. So when you study history, there's a couple characters in history where there's like two people and sometimes they're related or not related, but they're in the same generation and you have to disambiguate. So I'm going to disambiguate. This is Senior. August Belmont Sr. was a German-American financier, diplomat, and politician. He served as chair of the Democratic National Committee from 1860 to 1872, meaning during the period and where the American Civil War took place, this guy's in charge of the Confederate, the Democratic National Committee supporting slavery. And the people who financed him also supported slavery historically and presently in that day. We'll get to that. He was also a thoroughbred racehorse owner and a founder of the namesake Belmont Stakes, the third leg of the Triple Crown of American thoroughbred horse racing. Here's the important part. Let's learn who he is, who he became, and what he did. Early life, he was born as Aaron or Aaron Schoenberg to a Jewish family in the village of Alzey, which was shortly annexed by the Grand Duchy of Hesse. So Hessian soldiers came from a professional area of training called Hesse, and it was after the Napoleonic Wars. So this whole area went on. They had change during his lifetime because of Napoleon coming in, and then this is where the Rothschilds got power because of Napoleon being the scourge. His father, Simon Belmont, was the owner of a freehold estate and a leading citizen of Alzey, serving as president of the local synagogue for many years. His paternal ancestors were Spanish Jews who fled the Iberian Peninsula during the reign of Ferdinand and Isabella, 1492. Spain expelled the Jews. That's that part of the history. At a young age, his parents began calling him August, which a name which he used throughout his life. So then, after his mother's death, he lived with his uncle and grandmother in Frankfurt, where he attended the Philanthropen, a school founded by Meyer Amschel Rothschild, designed to integrate the city's Jewish and Christian communities. So they're bringing people together, and he becomes getting raised and educated by the Rothschild family. And they say, after he does business with them to Paris and Naples and Vatican City, they said, "You're pretty good at this. We're going to send you to America." Business career. In 1837, the Rothschild branches in Paris and London became concerned with their holdings in the Spanish Empire, which had been destabilized by the Carlist War. They sent Belmont to sail for Cuba via New York City. Reaching New York amid the panic of 1837, he learned that the Rothschild's agent, J.L. and S.I. Joseph and Company, had collapsed. So the Rothschilds needed a new agent in America, and August Belmont's an opportunist. He said, "Hey, I can get that job because they trained me." As the situation called for a response from Europe, more rapid than communications technology permitted, they didn't have the transatlantic telegraph yet, Belmont acted on his own judgment to postpone his trip to Cuba and then superintend the Rothschild interest in New York, establishing August Belmont and Company at 78 Wall Street. The Rothschilds eventually approved this decision, making him their permanent agent in the United States. So what does that mean? The permanent agent in the United States of the Rothschild banking family comes in control of the Democratic National Committee during the time that the Confederate flag was actually a thing that was being fought over back in those days. So this is fascinating. Wow, we didn't even have to read a whole page in an encyclopedia yet to really get informed on what's going on. But wait, there's more. August Belmont and Company, from 1837 to 1842, Belmont experienced instantaneous success, almost like he was working for the people who ran the monopoly in the first place and had a favored place in the system, serving as dispersing agent, dividend collector, and news gatherer for the Rothschilds and their customers. The new financial house also invested in foreign exchange markets, commercial and private loans, commercial paper, and handled deposits. Belmont's European connections attracted private investment from corporations, railroads, state and local governments. Anywhere in here you hear blue-collar workers? Anyone? I can hear you're in the back. I still can't hear you. Yeah, you're right. The Democratic Party and the guy who ran it works for the bankers and cares nothing about the people, but the people in the party, they sure do buy that gaslighting real hard, don't they? They say, govern me harder, vote harder next time. It's all going to work out. All right, let me keep reading here. Let's see if it works out. In the wake of the Panic of 1837, Belmont was able to use Rothschild credit to buy up Wildcat Bank notes, securities, commodities, and property at severely depressed rates. So there was a big crash and they bought everything up. Wildcat market could have been gold, it could have been oil, could have been any number of things going on. It's like they crash the market and then they come up and buy everything on pennies on a dollar. Almost like clearing an entire area by weather, but we'll get to stuff like that. That's like 21st century. We're still back in the 1800s. Using early modern securitization techniques, he was a pioneer on Wall Street, rapidly shifting money and commodities in complex international spirals of credit New York City had never seen before. He was also considered a skilled arbitrager. That's arbitrager. That's what the word is trying to be. Arbitrager is what I would say, but there's an actual word for that. Arbitrager. That's how you spell it. There you go. Earning him the nickname. Come on, you've never read arbitrager before. Giving him the nickname King of the Money Changers, which is interesting considering Jesus turned over their table once upon a time. There might be something there. I'm not sure. Within 3 years of his arrival in the city, he had amassed a personal fortune of $100,000, which would be like $2.9 million in 2023, making him one of the richest men in New York and one of the three most important private bankers in the United States, Lovey. He was still only 26, by the way. In the later half of the 1840s, Belmont's autonomy from the Rothschilds grew, and their relationship declined somewhat. So this is how they're like, we weren't involved in the Civil War, and we weren't involved with the Democratic Party. This is them distancing themselves in modern parlance, right? I have evidence to contradict this, but when Belmont was tasked with mentoring Alphonse James de Rothschild on a visit to America in 1849, he privately told his sister he feared he was training his replacement. Unfortunately, the next Rothschild scion that came to replace him died in 1861, and Belmont kept power. So there is proof of continuity of their relationship. So this is like they gaslight you sometimes on the Wikipedia, but there's generally, you can dig in and start to find what is said, what is accused, what is stated, what's there. Around 1849, Belmont met John Slidell, leading member of the Democratic Party in Louisiana, through the Union Club of the city of New York. So the Democratic Party for the South and the Confederacy and the slaves is being planned out of New York City. New York City. Yeah, that's right. By 1850, Slidell encouraged Belmont to enter politics. So he's not only being backed by the international banking dynasty, but also local Democratic leaders are like, dude, our boat's with the deep state here, because this is the emergence of the deep state. Belmont had voted for Democratic candidates since his naturalization, although most of his business acquaintances were nominal or active Whigs, which was a former political party. Republican Party comes around 1856, and they're the abolitionist party, and that replaces the Whigs. They no longer go forward, really. But with Slidell, Belmont backed the nomination of former United States Secretary of State James Buchanan for president, 1852, hoping to unite New York in a coalition with the South, because the Wall Street guys like the slavery too. They're like, let's keep it going. How can we do that? Right. So there were people from the North and the South on the side of the Confederacy. It wasn't just people in the South. It's a little more complex and nuanced than the story we were told, surprisingly enough. So anyway, there's a long history to this, but I am establishing the fact that August Belmont, here it is, here's more. En route to The Hague, Belmont visited Buchanan and Lionel de Rothschild. What's our president doing hanging out with Lionel de Rothschild in London? What's up with that? Is that something we should know about? Was that in your history book, right? So anyway, there's a whole bunch of fascinating history on this, but we don't have time to put the whole thing in the record, but I'm letting you know it exists. I'm letting you know that if you have a friend who's a Democrat and they're on the side of slavery and don't know it, like, do them a favor. Like, have a conversation. You don't have to be right or wrong. Just like, hey, did you ever look into Civil War, Democratic Party, origins of Confederate flags, slavery type of defense? There's a conversation there. And when you get into this interesting stuff that I thought the Rothschilds were a conspiracy theory thing. No, this is the actual part of American history written by the victors in the case that we got. And that doesn't include the Rothschilds anywhere in the story, does it? Who can't you criticize? That might be who's in control. There might be something there going on. That might be why 60 Minutes had to edit that interview that we just saw. Anyway, we don't have much more time for such things, but I did want to put it on the record that when they want to try to use a Confederate flag in a commercial like that, Sam Elliott should know better. He's been here more decades than I have. And, you know, I was able to afford that information. You guys can afford it too. It's right there on the internet. If you use it for something other than watching men who are emasculated try to convince masculine men. Because, like, I saw an ad on my phone, and I looked over to my wife. I said, honey, I just saw a Kamala, like Men for Kamala ad, and I'm going to change how I'm going to vote. Is something I would never say. And she started laughing, right? Because, like, you know, to say it gets her attention is like, yeah, I would never say that. There's no way I would ever watch one of those Men for Kamala videos and be like, oh, maybe they have a point that I haven't considered. Because I'm considering the whole time. But they failed to make a point at all, other than a bunch of innuendo, donut, full-throated, you know, it was just a bunch of raging hard-on talk.
Crazy crying in front of
Dude,
his
yeah,
horse.
and Vosh. If you look up Vosh and Clip Genie, you'll understand the horse memes, because he got caught with horse porn on his computer on a live stream, and that's why that's a thing. We covered it like 6 months ago, and maybe Scott will look that up on Clip Genie, or maybe that's just toilet humor.
Well, you know what really just...
But it really happened. It's history. He's a major liberal commentator.
There you go.
With horse porn on this computer.
But you know, this really begs the question, like, okay, so then who are these ads targeted for? Like, what? Like, obviously, they put a lot of money and resources into producing these and putting
people
them out.
Inside the gaslighting bubble.
Yeah, that's right.
Which is not the swing states that they need to convince.
Yeah, it's just reinforcing people who are already going to vote. It just emboldens them. It's probably, you know what it is? I think it's more so people who are just lazy, and this might get them across the finish line to actually put down their phones and put their pants on and go down and vote that day. That's what they're.
Let me ask you a question. Because we've seen two sets of Men for Kamala ads, right? In either of those commercials, here's the scenario. The power just went out. You're going to have to survive. Any of those dudes coming on your team to like help start fire or collect firewood or shelter or water purification, do you think that knowledge, skill, survival set is anywhere there? So they're going to be alienated in any type of reality scenario. They're going to be seeing like, that's, I don't know, it's not good for them. If you don't come into a situation with some knowledge, skills, experience, and or tools, resources, and methods, you're going to be useless to whatever group has already like gotten their shit together. They've got radio communications. They got stuff getting figured out. They're going to see jokers and be like, no, thank you. Because you can do more damage than good, because you don't know how to take care of yourself. And you're always going to be dependent on other people who are trying to rescue people and you know, whatever type of situation is going on. So I'm just saying, like, when the terrarium turns off, when they're like, I'm sorry, life's not open today with electricity or sewage or plumbing or any of that type of stuff. Any of those guys in those commercials on anybody's team that you'd be on, right? No, that's not going to happen. Like, people who are smart know that if you have people around that don't know what they're doing, it can get me killed or you killed. Not necessarily them. The people that make the dumb mistakes usually live. It's other people who live with the consequences, because these people don't have in-game experience, if you will, right? They don't know when you use the chainsaw and you cut a limb, like, it falls and it might be attached to things or hit things or, you know, catch their rope or any of these types of things. So anyway, we do have some chainsaw clips later. But
that's such a good such a good point. Like, that's such a good litmus test for this whole thing. Like, invest your time and energy into the relationships of the people who will show up for you when the power goes out, or you can show up for them. Like, none of these, Donald Trump ain't coming to save you when the power goes out.
That's true.
Biden ain't gonna save you when the freaking storm hits your town.
Donald Trump has access to the same FEMA that Biden has access to, right? FEMA's in with the globalists. FEMA's in with DARPA. FEMA's in with like the long game of like not always being America in the future. That they're facilitating the migration to make sure that the world is just homogenized for the globalist endeavor. But, you know, when you go back to the English speaking Anglo-Saxon people that want to rule over that whole thing, it's like, that still exists. You can homogenize all you want, but the people that set up that whole homogenization process came from the legacy of Cecil Rhodes. Yeah. So, like, you know, they might be like making, you know, mixing the populations together so that there's no longer like, you know, people are from regions, they're all just mixed. but they're keeping the same ruling structure that they've been building for 120 years now. Like, they're not switching that out. They're still going to be in control. Equity and communism, whatever, for everybody but them. And this is shown by Aldous Huxley in Brave New World with Mustafa. All those things are banned. Music, art, free comms, whatever. Like the rulers, Big Brother in 1984, they always have access to that stuff. Culture, art, all those things, right? They hold it for themselves. They keep people weak from separating from source. Yeah. It's part of it. It's part of it. All right.
Can I ask you a quick question? Like that just kind of
sure.
ties into what you were saying. And I know this might be a big topic, maybe for another day, but like I remember learning in school, like the main narrative is that like, yeah, so the Democrats were, you know, the pro-slavery people, the Confederate people, right? All that stuff. And then we were taught that, they like switched ideologies, at some point in history, the Democrats and Republicans they all of a sudden just switched. And all of a sudden the Republicans became, because, you know, it was Lincoln was a Republican and he freed the slaves. But now all of a sudden, you know, you can't have the narrative that the Republicans are the good guys. So at some point there was like a switch. Like, is there any validity to that, or is that just propaganda?
Well, the first switch was thrown on Lincoln and another switch was thrown on Kennedy. But the people throwing the switch might have a mystery school, a secret society, a multi-generational grouping that is remained out of the narrative because they got empowered. When you ask Key Bono who benefited, like it's that group of people that makes a lot of money in the slave market and the black markets of, you know, cartel trades, arm dealings, human trafficking, all that stuff that they do, and more, as we'll learn with the Diddy tapes later.
There you go.
Such sad stuff. That's why couldn't he just stick to not being a good rapper?
Everyone's doing some kind of self-help these days, and you can find a million self-help courses out there. Most other courses out there are hosting lectures. They're hosting videos, they're maybe even doing Q&As, and these are great starting points to encourage learning. But at Autonomy, we believe that hands-on practice is the best way to really lock in what we're learning. There's no better way to gain confidence and mastery than through action. After each lecture, we practice the concepts we've learned with other students, giving and receiving feedback in a non-judgmental environment. The result is mastery of concepts like entrepreneurship, ethical sales, and self-reliance in an environment that directly translates to the real world. Plus, you make connections with other like-minded individuals who are learning right alongside you, and you have a lifetime membership in the community. The Autonomy course with Richard Grove equips you with confidence, competence, and courage in a world filled with confusion and noise. You can learn more at getautonomy.info. We'll see you there.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested, in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come